Hi, I'm Dustin with the Compose team. I just wanted to give you guys a walkthrough over creating an experiment and going over some of the more advanced use cases. So yeah, here we are on the Compose dashboard on the experiment list view. I'll go ahead and create an experiment so I can save it. I'll just call it dark mode, save it as a draft. And then below that, we can link a hypothesis. So if you have a hypothesis set up for for an experiment, you can link that here. So I'll just go ahead and go through this and update the roadmap as well. And then down here, we have our variants. So in Compose, we have a handful of variants. We have redirect variants, regular expression redirects, Shopify theme redirects, and JavaScript variants. So I'll just start with the basic example. So for variant one, we can name this whatever we want. And then for redirect, this example would be like if you land on a PDP page. Let's say you land on mysite.com/PDP. You want to be directed to PDP dark mode, and PDP dark mode is the same thing as PDP, just dark mode. And then you obviously through the platform, you can measure the conversion rate between one versus the other. So that's a really simple example. Next up, we have regular expression redirect. This is useful for when you have, for example, you have like a product ID. This would be like PDP and then your product ID, and you want to capture this product ID and then place it inside your redirect. So keep in mind, you also, since this is regular expression, you have to escape special characters like period. So, but for this example, we'll land on the PDP page, we'll capture that ID, and we'll use that capture group and reference it here in the redirect URL. So here, $1 is where that product ID goes. And then we're going from the PDP to PDP dark mode. And then we're also just tacking on a query string parameter at the end here. If you want to do that, you can basically do anything, add any text you want onto the end. You can go anywhere you want, and then use as many capture groups as you want inside the regular expression URL. So that's how regular expressions work. They're really useful for especially PDP pages when you have to transfer the product ID. Next, we have another more simple example. This example is when you land on your site, you're assigned, if you're using Shopify, you have a certain theme. And if you have a different theme you want to test against, you can pass in the theme ID here. And you can find this in the Shopify theme editor. You just copy paste the theme ID and we'll redirect you to that theme instead. Next, we have JavaScript variants. So this is where a lot of the power comes from. So for example, I have over here, I'll copy paste an example I have. Just to keep it, you have a lot of power because it's JavaScript, but just to keep the example simple, let's say you were assigned this variant on a PDP page and you just want to change the background color of the checkout button to yellow and then test the conversions between what we had before and then what we had now. So let's just focus on the top part up here. We'll just find the button on the page, make the background of that color yellow, and then we're good to go. We can save and close and continue. However, we also have the ability with JavaScript variants to do custom goals, and you don't necessarily have to use JavaScript variants to do custom goals, but you do have to use JavaScript to fire custom goals. So here we can track exactly how many people click that yellow button on that variant. So here I'll just make the goal name yellow button click, and the goal of this button is to track how many people click the yellow button. And I'll come back to the info page real quick, open up the editor, and here I'll just add an event listener on that button. And then if we've installed the Compose tracking snippet, we'll have access to window.compose, and we'll dispatch an event on that object, and we'll dispatch a new event called goal : which is important. You have to have the prefix, and then the name of the custom event that you set up on the info page. So here I'm firing an event called yellow button click. And what this does is every time someone clicks that button, a conversion event is tracked on the Compose backend, and then that conversion event is displayed on the report page on a variant table. So you'll have a section for custom events, and all your custom events and all those conversion events are displayed there, and you'll be able to sort through the different chart options. So you don't necessarily have to put this Compose dispatch event here in this this JavaScript variant. You can put it just in your client code on your website for whatever you want to track. But I think utilizing it in this way, personally, I think is really powerful because you can track exactly clicks for one variant or the other. So also on the goals page at the top here, we have the confidence level. So we have a few different levels. We have strict, recommended, which is 90. So strict is 99, recommended is 95, and then low traffic 90%. So what this does, it doesn't really affect any of your data per se, but it does affect how it's displayed on the report page. So if you want to reach confidence quicker and you have maybe less traffic than some of the maybe bigger competitors, and you want to reach that confidence threshold quicker, we recommend using the low traffic setting. However, if you have a decent amount of traffic, 95%, this is what we recommend for most people. But then we also offer a strict mode. So if you have a very high amount of traffic, you can actually reach a 99% confidence in some cases. So if you want that, we have it available. But for the majority of cases, we recommend 95% or even 90%. So I'll keep this on 95. And then next we have targeting. So targeting here, we have two sections. We have audience, which is like your demographic of device type, browser or source referral. And then we have trigger conditions, which are actually what trigger the start of the your experiment after the audience has been applied. So I'll start with the audience. We have device, we have browser, and then we have source. So devices, we have like is or is not, mobile, tablet, or desktop. For browser, we have is or is not Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge. We have a handful of browsers here to pick from. And then for source, we have is or is not, includes or does not include, then string. So if you have a source URL that includes a keyword that you do not want to include, or includes a string that it does include, you can filter out that here. And this is an and or type logic system. So for example, right now, if we want to do is desktop and is Chrome, then this experiment will only apply to those users that are on desktop and Chrome. If you want to drag this down to the and section, you can do if the user is on desktop and is Chrome versus or Chrome, like and then obviously you can mix and match and do whatever combination you want. So if you want to do browser is Chrome or is Firefox, you could do that. And then obviously the impossible, you could do is Chrome and is Firefox. So obviously that wouldn't apply to anyone. And if you just leave it blank, then it applies to everyone. And then down here, we have the trigger conditions. So trigger conditions are when the experiment actually gets called. So after we've determined who this applies for, let's just put this back to mobile users. This is a mobile test, let's say, and we're testing the My Site PDP. So we want this to be for the very basic redirect variant, we would do My Site PDP. This is the page that people have to go to be assigned one of the variants. So if they match this, then if it's a redirect, you'll roll the dice, and then you'll either stay on the current site or you'll be redirected to the dark mode. But we also have some other trigger conditions here as well. So it's not just the URL. If you want, you can also use JavaScript here. So for example, over here on the side, I have an example for the dark mode. Let's say in your UI, a user has opted into experiment. So maybe you don't want to test all your users. Maybe you want to have a system in which people opt into the A/B test, basically. So here I have just some local storage set. We get item enabled experiments. And if this local storage item just exists, it's not null, then we return true here. So I'll go ahead and save and close this, and I'll just put this up at the top, and we can remove this one. And then now, if any user passes this condition, then the experiment will get triggered for them. So maybe for ours, we want to do this, and we want this trigger condition. We want both of them, actually. So we want to do it on the PDP page, but also with enabled experiments only. So we can do that here as well. Like this is the same logic system as before for the audience, just for what actually triggers the experiment. And then we also have query strings down here as well. So if you have a query string in the URL, this could also trigger your experiment. So maybe I'll do, for this one specifically, since it's dark mode, maybe it still applies to the PDP page. And then we do it for everyone who's enabled the enabled experiments toggle button, but also we can maybe do dark mode. So if they have a query parameter, dark mode equals true, then this would apply to them if they're on the PDP page. So next we have traffic. So traffic allocation is where you determine how much traffic goes to one variant versus another. So usually you want to keep this 50% for both of them. But if for some reason you're feeling bold, you can maybe bump up your variant to a higher amount, and then more traffic will flow into that variant versus the original. But usually you want to keep this 50-50. But there are a couple scenarios. So for example, if I come back to the info page and let's just add a blank variant here for show. If for some reason you just wanted to completely redesign your PDP page, you can just set the original to 0, and now you just have two variants duking it out, right? So that's one example. Like you don't care about the original at all anymore. You're pretty confident in one of these two designs, and you just want to figure out which one to use. So there's one example. But then the inverse of that, maybe you really don't want to take that much risk. You have a decent design already, but you want to, trickle in two variants slowly. So maybe you have like a really decent converting page already, but maybe one of the two variants are doing well, but you don't want to take a big risk. So maybe you'll bump these down a little bit even. So then you have two variants duking it out, but at a lower percentage. So only a handful of people will actually get one of the two variants, but the majority of people will still get the original. So that's another way to run tests, and something you can do with traffic allocation. Next, we have the review page. So the review page just has a quick summary at the bottom, so you can review, what you have set up. And up at the top here, we have the preview entry point. And this is required to preview because on the targeting page, if you remember, we have JavaScript conditions here and also query string parameters that can trigger the test. So we don't exactly know where in your application that you actually want to preview. So you can actually, the test can apply to a wide array of pages potentially. So here we'll just pass in the PDP as the entry point. And then here you can either copy the link or view the preview. So if you view the preview, you will get it will open your preview entry point in a new tab with a compose bar at the bottom, and you'll be able to select which variant you want to preview. And you can also, copy and then send this off to QA or the design team to make sure that it's implemented correctly. And then once it is, you'll start the experiment. Something to keep in mind here is that this is a preview feature. This is not meant for production. So the performance you get in the preview feature will not align with what you'll get in the production environment. So yeah, if everything looks good here, we can go ahead and start this experiment. And what this is doing is it's taking all the experiments we have in the project, bundling them up, taking all the JavaScript for the JavaScript variant, the trigger variant, the trigger JavaScript variant, and bundling it all into a bundle, and then sending it off to a CDN to be used by the compose tracking script. So here, after everything's ready to go, this is the experiment report page. So up at the top immediately, we see our custom goal, yellow button click. And here, if I expand the chart, we can see how many visitors and conversions each one of the variants gets. And then you can see the growth and conversion rate. And I'll swap over to a client of ours so you can see some real data and see these charts in action. But for now, I'll just go over what we can see here. So we have the conversions, the conversion rate, and then cumulative conversion rate. So this is so you can see that your growth actually is consistent over time. And then down here at the bottom, we have some of our default goals. So we always track revenue, assuming it's been set up, and then link engagement, and then bounce rate. And then down at the bottom, we have total revenue. So this is our only analytic event. Something to keep in mind about conversions is that conversions only get tracked once per session, basically. So if a user comes to your website, they get entered into a variant, and then they eventually check out. That user would convert once, and if they go back and check out again, then they won't convert a second time, because for that experiment, they've already converted. So just keep that in mind, conversions versus analytics. However, for total revenue, every time a user comes back and checks out, that will get recorded in the total revenue amount here. So there's a little bit of difference between a conversion event and an analytic event. We also have a date range picker. So if you want to filter out between a certain date range, you'll be able to do that here. So now let me just swap over to one of our clients that has some actual data. Over here, this is a real experiment on an actual live website. So here you can see how many visitors they get, the conversions they got for this experiment. This experiment is some type of return exchange experiment, tracking how many returns exchanges there are in the navigation. So here we can see the conversions, the conversion rate over time, and then cumulative conversion rate. So here, if you hover over, you can see the conversion rate for each day, and then the visitors they got. And then down here, you can see for revenue, it looks like their growth actually went down a little bit, but only slightly. This test has only been going on for 3 days. So the longer this test goes on for, I'm sure this will not be as significant. And then down here, we have link engagement. It looks like link engagement is currently going up, but it started low. So I think since it started low, it's skewing the growth here. But that's why we have the cumulative conversion rate. So assuming this test goes on for a week or so, this will probably flatten out. And once it flattens out, you can probably be pretty confident that it will probably remain at about that rate. But there's always variance and different conditions to consider. Over here on the right side, we have a little error rate. Right now, the error margin is very low, so it's hard to see. But we do have that there to display like the error rate of the conversion rate. So yeah, that's a decent walkthrough of what we have available on Compose at the moment. So hope you enjoyed the walkthrough. Let us know if you have any questions. Thanks.